Good evening, everyone. This is Jeremy Cartie, your live stream astronomer here at Kopernik Observatory to bring you Comet ZTF. And we're going to get started with that in just a few minutes. First, I'd like to welcome any newcomers to our YouTube channel. We're so happy to have you this evening. Over the last 24 hours or so, we gained a few new subscribers. So I know some new people are watching tonight, so welcome to the stream. And thank you also for all the donations that have already come in. Kopernik Observatory is a nonprofit organization, and we could not do what we do without your help and support. So thank you so much for that. If you'd like to show your support to Kopernik, there is a donation link right through the stream in the live chat, and you can do so anonymously or not. And there's also, if you prefer, a PayPal link in the video description. And for the newcomers to the Kopernik Observatory YouTube channel, I want to take you through a look at Kopernik, our website, what we have programming-wise. So let's jump to that here. Right here. So here's our presentation screen. We'll switch between our monitor view here with our presentation, and eventually in a few minutes, we'll jump over to the Comet. I'm also going to do my best to monitor the chat and answer some questions. I'll make sure you're aware of that when I plan to move into that phase of the show. So you'll be able to start posting there. To help control the chat a bit, we do have it locked off to subscribers, and that's really just because if we open it up too much, it's just we call it the CVS receipt. It just flies by, and it's hard to answer much of anything. So this helps control it a little bit. All right, so yeah, this is our YouTube channel here. You can see we're streaming Comet ZTF right now. That's what you're watching. But we have so many. We have so many videos here that you can watch in our backlog. Here are the live views in the live tab. We just presented this past Friday, Winter Skies, and we did talk a fair bit about Comet ZTF in that presentation. I'll take us through a little bit of that as the show goes on tonight, of the Comet component, but I won't be making a Comet during this live stream. If you want to see Kopernik make a Comet, you can go back to that Winter Skies, and we've broken it down into chapters, so you can go right to where we made a comet and see what comets are made out of. So that's available to you. We did try to stream the conjunction. Oh, there I am, fixing my glasses as I do. That's a fun thumbnail. That was the lunar occultation of Mars, which actually happened again in some areas of the world, not just a couple days ago. So that's something we didn't quite get a view of because we had cloudy skies, but not tonight. Tonight we have clear skies all night. All right, so yeah, you can go back and watch all of our presentations and observing. We have 3 types of shows. We have our NSL, which is our Night Sky Live. We have our FNL, which is Friday Night Live Stream. By the way, NSL is what you're watching right now, Night Sky Live. FNL is what we do every Friday night on a presentation on some topic in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And you can also come up to Kopernik during FNLs too if you prefer, and you're available to visit us locally. You can come up to our site and watch the FNLs in person, and then look through our telescopes afterwards. Then we have our KRXNs, our Kopernik reactions. And that's, for the chemists out there, RXN is the shorthand for reaction. So Kopernik reactions are exactly what they sound like. We react to big events in astronomy, in space exploration. So we covered Artemis 1, the launch to the moon. So those are all options for you. Okay, so I do want to just briefly show you. I know we're all excited to see the comet, but I do want to briefly show you the website. This link is available in the video description, as well as all of our social media pages. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, All those links are in the description if you'd like to follow us there. We post all kinds of content, especially our astro photos that we get up at the observatory. And the reason I bring you to the website initially is because you see this wonderful picture that we just updated this past year. You can see it's fall at Kopernik, and back here is our observatory. We have 3 domes with a telescope in each of them. So a 6-inch refractor telescope that's actually out of service right now. It's getting some maintenance done on it, but it will be back hopefully for our spring session when we reopen fully every Friday night in the spring. Then we have our 14-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain reflector. That's a Celestron Edge HD. It's a mirror-based telescope. Pretty good in size. And then the largest scope we have at Kopernik is back here in this dome, which is the 20-inch Ritchie-Kreischen reflector. So that one's an astrograph, effectively, which means it takes astrophotos, whereas the other 2 telescopes you look right through with your eye. You can hook a camera up to it too, like we've done on other streams, but the 20-inch is strictly for astro imaging. It has a camera more or less permanently affixed to the scope. All right, so right on the front page, we have Comet ZTF. And by the way, you've seen this thumbnail around. If you're on the live stream, you clicked the video potentially on YouTube. That picture, maybe some of you recognize that picture from one of our very first live streams here at Kopernik Observatory. One of our very first observing live streams, I should say. This is an image of not Comet ZTF, but Comet Neowise from back in 2020, which is right around when we started the observing live streams. So it's hearkening back to that time where we were just kicking things off. And yeah, it was a lot, it was a pretty rocky start to our live streams. We learned a lot along the way, and we'll see what we can come up with tonight. Neowise was a much brighter comet, though. So even with the equipment that we had, the lesser, I guess, equipment that we had to work with, mostly the camera was the main issue there. I don't think we're going to get quite a picture like this, because Neowise was pretty bright, noticeable to the eye. Comet ZTF is just verging on being visible to your eye. You have to have great conditions, and on top of that, we have the moon in our way, which we'll go ahead and focus on a little bit of what the skies look like not too long from now. All right. So let's see here. Let me quickly see. Okay, yeah, we're still doing good there. And why don't I see if I can gauge something. I'm going to go back to my webcam view for just a moment. I'm going to bring this over here so I can, pardon me, just adjusting my windows so that I can see the chat a little better. Not too bad right there. That'll be perfect. Right there. Okay, so now I can read the chat as it comes through. As you all ask questions, got to make sure I'm prepared for that. And make sure, okay, there we go. So first, I just want to, I know we're going to have a lot of questions about where we can see this comet, how do we go about looking for it, and I just want to go and give you a rough guide about what you can expect for this comet. So first we gotta look at the name here, okay? Let's look at the name. This is the name you've seen in the news, either this or the Green Comet, maybe just Comet ZTF like I've used in shorthand for this stream. But its full name is this. And again, this is part of the presentation we did for Winter Skies, but it's a great overview, I think, of what we can expect for the comet. So let's talk about each of these components here. All right, so we'll talk about what a comet is in a moment, but let's go through these parts. So C, and this slash here breaking up the C in the 2022, that means it's a non-periodic comet. It has a greater than 200-year orbit, so it's not really all that regular. In fact, the last time, based on our trajectory measurements of the comet, maybe you've seen this figure in the news, the last time this comet visited the inner solar system and whipped around the sun was 50,000 years ago in the Stone Age. So this comet was deep out in the solar system for quite a while. All right, so non-periodic. Doesn't come through all that often. All right, then we have 2022. And that is the year of discovery. That makes sense, right? So this comet was discovered last year. More than that, we have we can narrow down when it was discovered a little more with this E3. All right, and that is the third comet, for the number 3, third comet discovered in the 5th half month. All right, so that's with the letter E, right? A, B, C, D, E. You got your 5 letters there. So that's where the 5th half month comes from. So, and I don't necessarily know why it's categorized exactly in this way. This is effectively a catalog system for naming comets, because there's a lot of them out there. Comet Neowise was shorthand as well. I can't remember what that name was at the time, what the full name was, but Neowise was the name of the observatory that discovered it, and that's what goes in parentheses. But yeah, we'll talk about that in one more moment. Third comet discovered in the 5th half month, so you count your half months starting in January. So in January you've got 2 months, February you've got 2 months, that's a total of 4, and this is discovered in the 5th half month. So that's the first half of March. Okay, so that's narrowing down the discovery date a little more. And then finally, this is where it was discovered, the observatory that discovered it, which is the Zwicky Transient Facility, ZTF. And that's always going to be in the parentheses when you see a comet name where it was discovered. And if I recall, the Zwicky Transient Facility is a facility located at Palomar Observatory out in California. So that's where it was discovered. Okay, so that's breaking down the name a bit, but we also have to talk about what's a comet. And again, if you want to go check out what comets are really made of, we made a comet this past Friday during the Winter Skies live stream, so you can go jump back and check that out. So what's a comet made out of? Well, ice is a big part of it. Effectively, they're dirty snowballs. If you're anywhere in our area, in New York here, if you look at the snow to the side of the road, not too far off from what a comet is primarily made out of. Just that dirty snowball. Then you have a couple of other compounds and elements in there. Nitrogen's a big one. So our atmosphere, for example, is about 70% nitrogen. So take that nitrogen, it's part of a comet. You also have hydrocarbons, and when we were making our comet on Friday, we used some nerds, because the sugar in candy is a hydrocarbon. It's effectively organic molecules, what you're made up of, what life is made up of. So comets can carry the foundations for life as well. And both comets and asteroids and meteors in the early solar system effectively seeded the Earth with the compounds for life. So that's part of a comet. You also have dry ice, not just water ice, but you have dry ice as well. So dry ice is frozen carbon dioxide. So good amount of carbon on comets. And let's see, did I forget anything? Well, you'll have some rocky material too. Not as much as you'd find on a meteor or an asteroid, but some. These objects are a lot less dense because they're icy. So you don't have as many heavier elements in a comet like you would find in a meteor or asteroid. Okay, so that's what a comet is. Think of a comet as a dirty snowball hurtling through space. And when we made our comet, we also showed you how the energy works. The heat from the sun, the radiation coming off the sun, you could breathe. What I did is I breathed it onto the comet to emulate solar energy. And when you do that, you get this tail coming off of it because the carbon dioxide interacts with the air. And instead of being a dusty tail in this case, it's more of a water vapor tail. But the idea is the same. You're getting this effect from energy hitting the comet, and you'll have similar reactions going on in space with the solar wind. So let's go a little further here. All right, so Comet ZTF, a 50,000 year orbital period. Now, what's interesting about that is that while it may have passed through the inner solar system about 50,000 years ago, right now, again, based on the current trajectory, as it's entered our solar system, entered the inner solar system, it's gone past Jupiter, its orbit has been perturbed or disturbed. And it's done so enough that most likely it is now on its way out. All right, it's on its way out of the solar system. And it's probably going to become an interstellar comet. It's going to reach escape velocity from the sun and drift into deep space. So it's similar to how our orbital mechanics work with our spaceships. When we launch a spaceship from the Earth, we will use the planets in the solar system to our advantage to get the spacecraft speeding up. So we call that a slingshot. So you can slingshot around the planets in the solar system with your spacecraft, gain some speed, and get to where you need to go. That's a really valuable method for space travel. And the same thing can happen with natural bodies in the solar system, including comets. So on one hand, we're not going to be around 50,000 years from now to check, but scientists have worked out the math, and it most likely will be venturing out of the solar system because it will reach escape velocity. All right, so this comet, a comet from the Oort cloud. Many comets are from the Oort cloud. And the Oort cloud is the very outer edge of our solar system. To the point that at the very outer edge of the Oort cloud, you're going to have sharing of interstellar objects. So this is in one way an example of that. You'll have these, a lot of these objects are icy bodies, majority of them, because that's the solar system is spread out in terms of density. Rocky bodies towards the sun, and then you get your gaseous and icy bodies further out. And that is the case with these objects here. Very lightweight, very low density objects. So from the Oort cloud at the furthest reaches of our solar system. And the current magnitude is about a 5 to 6. Now I want to take us back to the start of this show, if I can, just for those that don't know magnitude that well. This was in our ABCs of stargazing. We're just going to focus on the B in our ABCs. And B is for brightness, which is magnitude. And you'll see on our scale for magnitude, going from negative 25 on the left to positive 25 on the right. This actually goes from very bright, that's why you have the sun heading towards negative 30, to very faint in the positive side of the plot. Okay, so it's kind of opposite to how you'd think it would be. So as you go down in negative numbers, you have the moon out here around a 13 or 14. Nope, rather a 12 or 13, I should say. So that's where the moon lives, negative 12 or 13. And then down this way at around negative 4, you have Venus, a very bright planet in the sky. In fact, if you, as the sun set, you may have seen a bright star in the sky, and that wasn't a star, that was actually Venus. Okay, then you have this bright star that's out tonight at our location as well, which is Sirius, and then you have Vega at 0 magnitude. Vega's a pretty bright star as well. All right, then at this +5, and between 5 and then 6 and 7, that's where you're going to hit the faintest naked eye object or naked eye star, meaning that's as faint an object as you can see with just your eye. Unaided eye. No scopes, no binoculars. And then everything out here you need some kind of instrument to see. Guess where the comet is on this plot? Right about here. So in order to see this comet with your eye, you need optimal conditions. And with the moon out right now, that's a real challenge. Because if we didn't have an atmosphere, it wouldn't be a problem at all. We'd see the comet, it would shine right through, because we don't have to worry about moon glow. But because we have an atmosphere, you'll get a lot of moon glow in the sky. Moon's very bright, and it's waxing, so it's heading towards that full moon. So that's the real problem that we have to work with. Tonight, I was actually surprised the moon glow isn't terrible. So, yeah, that's the trouble here. So if you're out without any binoculars or a telescope, you're going to have a real difficult time trying to find it. But that's not the end of the story. If you are just really interested in hunting this comet down for yourself, there are some tools that you can use that most of us have right on us, even if you don't have binoculars or telescopes. So I'll explain what I mean there. Let's just go back to the rest of the comet here. I have a couple more pictures. By the way, these pictures are not mine. I definitely want to give credit. These all came from, at least 2 of the 3 that I have to show you, came from APOD, the astronomy picture of the day. And I want to make sure I give credit to astrophotographer Dan Bartlett for these images. There are some absolutely brilliant ones out here at the different stages of the comet as it's orbited in the solar system around the sun, this near orbit. Okay, so, and I promise, don't worry, we're getting to the point where we'll check out the comet in our view. I still have it decently centered. I will have to go recenter in a bit, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I want to just set the scene before we jump to that. So again, here's the comet. Again, credit to Dan Bartlett. And you'll see a few features for this one. Every comet shape will be a little bit different depending on what kind of material it's carrying, how the solar wind is hitting it, and what angle you're looking at it from. So I mentioned the orbital period. I think this is where I want to go. Yeah, this will work. So this is a good website that helps map out the comet. And you'll see here, can we zoom in? Yep, there we go. Here's the inner solar system. There's the orbit of Mars, the orbit of the Earth, Venus, Mercury, and the Sun at the center. And this red ellipse is the comet's orbit. So let's circle around here. This is great because you can get that 3D perspective on what's going on. So you'll notice as we look edge on, or as best we can look edge on at the orbit, because you'll see it's not a perfect arc. Its plane, its orbital plane, this green section here, is aligned with the Earth. So, to some degree, especially for those of us in the northern hemisphere, we are looking at this comet from below as we look up to it in the sky. That's our perspective on this comet. And because of that, you get some interesting features that we'll look at in the next slide or two. So this is the orbital path of the comet. And like I said, it will be on its way out of the solar system. You can see just how wide this orbit is. Okay. It's a huge ellipse, and it's probably not a closed ellipse shape anymore. It's an open arc, because like I said, it's going to reach escape velocity. All right, so then we talked about our current magnitude. Again, it's varied a little bit as it's now venturing away from the sun, which means it's not going to be hit with as much energy. It's not going to give off as much material. Not as much sunlight is hitting it. So it's going to dim on that front, but because it got closer to the Earth, today's the closest approach, it would appear brighter. Just like if you look at a point source of light, as you get it closer, like a flashlight, anything like that, headlights, as it gets closer, it gets brighter. The intensity of the light increases as it gets closer. So that's the same with a comet. So as it drifts away from the sun, its approach to Earth is kind of counteracting the brightness change as it leaves the solar system. But after tomorrow, that won't be the case. We won't have that. It's only going to get dimmer from there. All right, so here's another neat image from astrophotographer Michael Yeager. So around January 17th, there was a disconnection event in the tail. Now, I should mention, there's two tails of a comet. There's the dust tail, which is that material, the dust material that's coming off of the comet. It's just reflecting sunlight. It's not itself glowing. So the dust tail can be pretty large, though. It's usually the largest part of a comet. In this case, it's kind of taken on a fan shape. And you can sort of see that here as the dust tail fans out in a nice wide pattern. This long tail, though, that you see, that is the ion tail. And the ion tail is a grouping of energized particles. Okay, and that means it is glowing. And those are effectively ions. I think it's carbon monoxide ions, CO2 ions, being energized by the solar wind and emitting radiation. So that tail also lights up, but it's because it's glowing. Just like think of fluorescent light, things that reflect light really well. If you've used a black light before, you're energizing that material. This is energizing these particles and making them glow and emit light. All right, but this says the ion tail is usually a steady stream, kind of like what you see here closer to the comet. But when there's intense solar wind, again, these storms coming from the sun, intense solar wind, it can disturb that steady stream of the ion tail. And that's what you see in here. And there are a bunch of videos that you can check out that show this really well. So I recommend looking those up. But this is just one that shows that perturbation in the ion tail drifting. Okay, so it's a disturbance in the tail. Okay, now this says today's APOD, but this was from the presentation on Friday. So this was Friday's astronomy picture of the day. And the image itself was actually taken on January 23rd. But of course, it takes some time to process. And again, this one is from Dan Bartlett. And it says, how many tails do comets have? Well, if you heard me earlier, we talked about how there were two tails, right? An ion tail, which you see here, that steady stream, and a dust tail. And again, for this one, it's very fanned out, a wide dust tail. Now, what's interesting about this is that the tails are right on top of each other. Whereas we have a really nice image of Comet Hale-Bopp in our computer lab that was taken right here at Kopernik. And that one shows you the dust tail and the ion tail separated from each other. The ion tail is always going to be pointed directly away from the sun because it's the most affected by that solar wind. It's going to be a direct interaction. The dust and particles coming off from the dust tail is not as directly affected. It's not as smooth of an interaction, so it's going to be angled a little bit away from that direct angle of the sun, a little bit away from the ion tail. But again, because we're looking at this comet from below, we're looking up at it, in that perspective, we see the tails superimposed on top of each other rather than being at an angle from each other. But wait, there's a tail pointed the other way. And that's not something you often see in comet images because the conditions have to be right. Again, this has to do with the entering the plane, the orbital plane of the comet. The Earth has to be entering that plane in order to see what is called the antitail. And that's this tail right here, the antitail, pointed away from the other tails. And effectively, it's material that's being deposited by the comet as it drifts through the solar system, but this material is staying in orbit rather than being left behind. So it's following the comet. It's not moving as quickly. It's lagging behind a bit, and it's glowing from sunlight. It's not like necessarily the ionized particles coming from the ion tail. Okay, so in this case, there's three. There's an antitail, but usually you only see the two. You see the dust and the ion tail. Also, this is a really nice image because you can see a little galaxy down here. It's a deep sky image of the comet. This might be a galaxy up here too. All the little fuzzballs in here are galaxies, not stars. Also notice the green color, this green coma, they call it, around the nucleus of the comet. And that coma is, again, it's this fluorescing material. It's glowing green because of this gaseous diatomic carbon. So diatomic carbon means it's two carbon atoms bonded together. And when that molecule becomes gaseous, which it is in the sort of the atmosphere of the comet, you get this green glow because those particles, that carbon is being energized, and it will glow similar to the ion tail. So that's why it has that green color. Same with Neowise. Neowise also took on a green color. Just like the thumbnail of this video. Again, just those of you just joining, the picture in the thumbnail is not this comet. The picture in the thumbnail of this video, it was Comet Neowise that we took back in 2020 during one of our first streams. All right, so before we jump into where you can find it in Stellarium, we'll get to Stellarium. It'll be the tool that you can use at home to find the comet. But I think those of you that have been in the stream to this point have waited long enough. I think it's time we just take a look at what we have in our camera view. And I will be adjusting this view as we go on throughout the stream. We might try and crop the view and pull some more detail out, and I certainly will have to recenter it as well. But let's jump over to the observing camera. All right. So at this point, this is what we have as a live video of the camera, not an image. You're always going to get more detail out of a framed shot of a camera. So meaning you take a long exposure of the object. This is video. This is video feed from directly from the telescope that we have hooked up outside. So it's streaming down from that camera, and the video is being updated maybe once every eighth of a second, something like that. So very short frames, at least for dark objects like this one, very dim objects of the sky. But we'll be able to try and take some real images of this comet not too long from now as we go through the stream. Because I definitely want to get some frames and see if we can pull some more detail out of the tail. The tail of this comet is very wide, and given the moonlight tonight, we'll see if we can get any sense of the ion tail. That'll be more of a challenge. For the most part, we'll be seeing the dust tail, which is what you're seeing right now. That glow around the comet is the dust tail. Okay, so as we go through the stream too, you'll also find that the comet moves through the stars. And that's because it is orbiting the sun. It is moving through the solar system, and it's moving pretty quick. So in a given night, you'll be able to see the comet move against the stellar background. Okay, so that's what we're gonna watch. But I also want to emphasize here, this is the gear we're using. We're using an 8-inch telescope, an 8-inch Newtonian reflector telescope. It's on a tracking mount so that we can at least keep up with the comet to some degree. It is going to eventually move out of the view, and we'll have to adjust and recenter, but we won't have to do that all too often. And I'm using a Sony a7 III camera to capture the image that you see there, the video. And altogether, that equipment, we've looked at deep sky objects on our live streams. We've imaged those deep sky objects. We've even, over the summer, we did a live stream on the Milky Way, where you could actually see me chat with you in video format with the Milky Way behind me. So this camera's no slouch, and this scope, in this case, it's actually my personal telescope that I'm using tonight just to capture the right field of view. Traditionally we use the 6-inch telescope, but like I said earlier, it's the one that we have. It's in maintenance right now. We're getting it repaired so that it's good to go for this spring. So 8-inch scope, a really sensitive camera, and this is about the best view that we can get based on the current sky conditions. I could crank up the exposure a little bit more, or the ISO, which is the sensitivity of the sensor. And but at a certain point, you're just going to blow out the image, and there won't be much to see at all. And that's driven by the moon that's out right now. So the moon makes it a real challenge to capture some good data on this object. All right, let's see here. I'm just going to refresh this screen, make sure I'm keeping up with the chat. All right. So we'll get to some questions in just a few minutes. Let's see. I'm realizing my date and time is getting cut off just a bit, so we're going to adjust that. Where is this? Is observing cam. Shrink that down. There we go. Okay. So you might also just be able to see a little bit of green around that dust ball in the field of view, and that again is coming from that carbon, that gaseous carbon. All right, so we'll recenter that view in just a few minutes, but let's jump into Stellarium here and do that. Just shrink this down. Turn the atmosphere back on. Okay, that'll do. Okay, we'll come back to the comet view. And yeah, we'll jump back to the comet view in just a few minutes. So here is Stellarium, where you can download Stellarium at stellarium.org. I'll put that in the chat here. Okay, so you can download this application at stellarium.org for any computer you have, pretty much. It's on Mac, it's on Windows, it's even on Linux. And there is a web-based version as well that you can use on Chromebooks or even mobile devices, though there is a free application at home, or there is a free application that you can download on your smartphone at home or a tablet, and that works just as well. There's a number of ones that you can use. There's Starwalk, there's SkyGuide, but Stellarium has one too. So you can download it here. Let me show you what it looks like. It's pretty much your at-home planetarium. So if you've ever visited a planetarium before, Kopernik has a portable planetarium, a big inflatable dome that we bring around to schools and libraries and basically anyone who requests it. We can bring it to you as long as we can fit it in your building. But there's indoor planetariums too. There's theater style, like nearby we have the Roberson Museum and Science Center, and they have a theater setup. So those are designed to simulate the night sky or daytime sky, but this is one you can use at home on any screen. So instead of looking around like you would with a theater style planetarium, this one you drag the sky and look in different directions. Okay, so you can look right up at zenith, you can look down towards the ground, and you can even zoom way, way out and get full sky views like this, or some really crazy 360 Earth views like that, which, you know, those might not be super practical. Better to simulate like you were standing on the ground like this. So you can turn on constellations. Down here we have some toolbars, and at the left we can turn the constellation lines on and off, the labels on and off. You can even turn artwork on, kind of focus more on the mythology of these constellations. And of course these are used to map out the sky. So we'll use these to help us find the comet. So looking up, way up in the sky, you have the moon, you have Mars, and you have Jupiter just setting in the western sky. So the moon's way, way up there, and that's what's interfering with our view of the comet primarily. Nothing else compares to the moon in terms of brightness in the sky right now. You have bright objects like Jupiter and Mars and Sirius. Betelgeuse is a fairly bright star. Aldebaran and Taurus right there. When you click on an object, by the way, you get a bunch of information about it. Capella is a bright star, but nothing compares to the moon. And that's what drives the glow in the sky tonight, as well as any light pollution that you might have nearby. All right, so you can also see that there's compass directions along the horizon: south, west, north, and east, and everything in between. And that will tell you where to look. Now, the smartphone versions of Stellarium and other applications like it will actually use the compass built into your device, and you can hold it up, and it will do its best to align your view on your phone to the view in the sky, using that compass and the gyroscope in your phone. So that can be handy. It's not going to always work perfectly, but it will at least get you in the ballpark of where these constellations are. You're going to want to look for bright ones out here, like Sirius is a bright constellation, Leo the Lion, Orion is nice and bright, Taurus the Bull, Cassiopeia, here's Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor translates to the Little Bear, Ursa Major is the Big Bear, and the Dippers are within the bears here. So there's the Big Dipper, and really it's these three that we can focus on. Cassiopeia, this sort of zigzag or W, Ursa Minor, and Ursa Major. And if you're looking carefully in my view here on the screen, you'll notice that Comet ZTF is visible in this display. So it's right here. Again, our full name for Comet ZTF is Comet C 2022 E3 ZTF. And we talked earlier about what that all means, what each part of that name means. There's a reason behind it. It's not just a bunch of random letters and numbers. So that's where it's located in the sky. And I'll show you too that in Stellarium you can zoom in on objects by pressing the space bar, at least if you're on a computing, just a PC like this. And then that centers and tracks the object. Then you can use the scroll wheel to zoom on in. And in Stellarium, it's not going to show you any real image in this case because this is a newly discovered object, and it's also a highly variable object, meaning it's going to change its brightness and day to day. So they just do use a placeholder comet picture here with the two tails that you're seeing there. And it gives you some data about it. Some of it might not be, the location data will be accurate. Where it's located in the sky, its coordinates, whether you're using altitude and azimuth or your right ascension and declination, your sky coordinates there. Right now it's saying magnitude 5.4. That's not too far off from what I've seen. Again, it's right on that cusp of seeing this object with just your eye. So it's a pretty dim object, and that's what we're seeing in our camera view when we looked earlier, and we'll get back to that not too long from now. But that's where it's located in the sky. Let's take a look at it with respect to the constellations. First, it's pretty high. If we look at the altitude of this comet, it's 62 degrees above the horizon. So it's really high up in the sky, and that would bode really well if the moon wasn't out, because the higher you go in the sky on a nice clear night, the less of the atmosphere you're looking through, and that would really help you find this. But again, because of the moon, there's a lot of moon glow out there. So in the end, it might help you a little bit, but the moon is also really high up in the sky too. So you can see it's not too far off from this comet. So here is Ursa Major, or the Big Dipper in Ursa Major. So the cup and the handle. Here is Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper in here. Here's the North Star. And the reason I show you these ones specifically is because some of these constellations around here, these ones aren't going to be very bright. The stars in them aren't very bright, so they might not make great indicators for finding it. Whereas the Big Dipper is very bright. The Polaris is reasonable in brightness. The tail of the Dipper, pretty dim. These two stars in the cup of the Little Dipper are dim, but these two stars are bright. So maybe one trick that you can use to find the North Star, because you will see the North Star with your eye in most sky conditions, unless your skies are very heavily light polluted like in a city. You can take these two stars in the cup of the Dipper and draw a line, just project a line out, trace one out, an imaginary line to the North Star. Those two stars will always point to the North Star, and that's a great trick to find it. Okay, so that's one way, and you'll see If you're looking due north, what's neat right now, at this moment, the comet is due north, above the North Star. When we time travel a bit, you'll see that that's not the case, but right now it is just above the North Star. Maybe something like, well, let's see. This is, the comet's at 62 degrees. Polaris is, well, it would be 42 degrees, wouldn't it? Because we're at 42 degrees latitude, so Polaris is going to be about 42 degrees. So about a 20 degree difference between the two. Oh, and maybe that is going to be worth showing you. I should jump back in and show you a way that you can measure degrees in the sky with just your hand. So that might be valuable. Let's go back and do that, okay? So at our location, you can measure from horizon to the North Star. You can measure that as 42 degrees. Again, for our latitude, Polaris, the North Star, is going to be 42 degrees above the horizon. Okay, so if we wanted to try and measure that, again, I said you can do that with just your hand. So let's do that. Let's go back here and learn about the A in our ABCs of stargazing. A is for angular size and distance. So here we go. These are the measurements that you can use. Now, notice it says keep your arm fully outstretched. So you've got to stretch your arm way out. And your pinky, the width of your pinky, measures about 1 degree when your arm is stretched all the way out. You got 3 fingers up. The width of your 3 fingers stretched all the way out, looking out in the sky, is about 5 degrees. Your fist, stretched all the way out, is about 10 degrees. And finally, your index finger and your pinky finger spread out a bit, that is 15 degrees. Again, stretched all the way out. So you can measure how far an object is in the above the horizon using just your hand. So measuring 40 degrees, you'd stack your fists about 4 times on top of each other. So you can just overlay them and count up as you go along above the horizon. Okay, so a nice tool. This also shows you some perspective using the Big Dipper. So the widest part of the cup of the dipper is 10 degrees. The side of the cup is 5 degrees. From here, this star here, wish I could remember the names, but I can't offhand here. From here to here is 15 degrees. And from the widest point of the dipper, you have 25 degrees. Okay, so those are some tools that you can use to narrow this down. All right, so let's go back into Stellarium. Again, you can always jump back a few seconds if you want to still see this, or visit our Winter Skies presentation, which is broken down into chapters for each section of that presentation. And that's a lot of what we're covering at the moment. So let's go back into Stellarium. And again, you would want to stack your fists, or you can even use the 15 degrees. Counting 15 degrees up, which was, I think this one here is 15 degrees, so you'd stack about 4 times up to get to 60 degrees, which is right about where the comet would be. Or you can do above the North Star. So from North Star to comet, that's 20 degrees. So that's a faster way to do it. So if we want to review here, some steps that you can take to find this comet. First, let's find the Big Dipper. Ideally, maybe have a compass on you so you know roughly where north is. You have a compass right on your phone, and that will get you right where you need to be. So find north, and once you've found roughly due north, you'll look for the Big Dipper to the northeast. That's going to be nice and bright. So the cup will be higher up, the handle pointed down towards the horizon. And when you find the cup, these two stars in the cup, you draw a line out to the North Star. Okay, so there's the North Star. And using that trick I showed you with measuring degrees, arm stretched all the way out, you can use your fist stretched all the way out. The width of your fist is 10 degrees. So you're going to want to take your two fists, stack them on top of each other like this, stretch them out right above the North Star, bottom fist on the North Star, and the comet would be right above your top fist. Okay? So that's the trick, more or less, for finding it. And that's just the case for right now, because it will move. Not just through the stellar background, but also driven by the Earth's rotation. It will move through the sky.
Friday, it was like over here.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, actually, well, yeah, why don't we do that? Let's travel through time and show you roughly how this comet moves through the sky. We'll go back in time first. So, let's go back a few days. Ready? Let's watch what happens. Right. Oh, yeah, there we go. It's the 27th, right? Yeah, 27th was Friday, and you can see that the comet was just to the right of Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper. And this is sticking at the same time, by the way. I just brought up this clock window, and I'm just adjusting the days. The time is staying the same. So we're still at 9:14, but on Friday, January 27th, back in time. So now let's go through the days, counting up. Here's the 28th. See how it climbs up. The comet is moving different to the stellar background, again, because it's in orbit. The planets will do this as well. Planet directly translates to wandering star, because they do not move with the stars over time, over the months. They will move through the stellar background, whereas all the stars will stay with each other. They'll move around the sky, but with each other, and that's all driven by the Earth's rotation day to day. But planets are in orbit. Comets are in orbit. Meteors and asteroids are in orbit, so they will wander through the stars. And that's what the comet's doing here from day to day. See, it climbs up. So here is January 30th, 31st, and here we are today. Let's keep going. Let's see where it's headed after today. February 2nd, 3rd. Zoom out a bit here. Keeps on climbing, right? 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. You see it's headed towards Mars in this case. Oh, wow, that's actually interesting. How close? Oh, I messed something up. Hang on, let me go back to where it was getting close to Mars, which is around the 10th. How close does it get to Mars? Hour by hour now. Oh, hey, that's... What about the 11th? Oh, yeah, it passes by there. Huh, it gets pretty close to Mars. That might be a cool image to try and take if it's still bright enough for it. It says estimated 6.5 magnitude, which is, yeah, at that point not going to be very visible to the eye. Well, maybe. I mean, the moon's down. You might see some kind of blob if your eyes are good enough. But hey, you know, in a week and a half, there might be an interesting opportunity there with Mars, especially with the skies dark. Yeah, maybe look out, if not from us, look out for some astrophotos. I imagine some people will try and get that picture. if the comet's bright enough still. Now they're not quite close enough. Mars, again, this is on February 10th. Mars and the comet, you won't really see detail on Mars with the comet in the same image. They're not that close, but it'll be cool to see the red glow of Mars and the comet together in the sky. Just a relationship of these two objects that aren't really close in 3D space necessarily, but to our apparent perspective on Earth will be near each other in the sky. Okay, so that's the trajectory of the comet from our perspective, looking up at the sky. You can see it ends up towards the western sky on by February 10th. Let's keep going. Let's see where else it goes. Yep, getting lower in the sky now as it drifts deeper and deeper into our solar system, and then eventually drifts out of it when it becomes an interstellar comet. This comet's not on its way back to us. Even in 50,000 years, it probably won't be venturing back into the solar system unless its trajectory gets changed again. Right now, it's on a path out of the solar system. And that can happen with comets. You can have an interstellar comet. Okay, so back to current time. And you can see, again, for those that are just tuning in, it's right above the North Star. So for anyone just tuning in, I'll just go through the steps one more time. Big Dipper, right here. That's a nice and bright object that you can find in the sky. The cup of the Dipper, these two bright stars in the cup, will always point to the North Star. That points due north. The North Star is, in our location, 42 degrees. It might be different for you, depending on your latitude. In New York, in Binghamton, New York, we are at 42 degrees latitude. So the North Star is 42 degrees above the horizon. The width of your fist at arm's length, if you're looking at the width of your fist at arm's length, is 10 degrees in the sky. So if you take two fists and stack them on top of each other and put them at arm's length and put the bottom of your fist, of your lower fist, on top of the North Star, the top of your upper fist, where my thumb is here, will be roughly where the comet is. Now, what's important about that is it's not really going to help you too much in terms of seeing it with your eye. Again, because the moon's out, it's very bright. It's going to be, I have not been able to see it with just my eye. So this helps you if you have binoculars or a telescope. That's really what you're aiming for with this method, is now you know roughly where to look. Keep track of that, and then with your scope or your binoculars, try and find it with those. So now I do want to jump back into the camera view for our comet, and we'll see how it's shifted across the sky from a stellar background. And maybe we'll go out and recenter it, and then we'll be back for some questions too that I'll be able to field in the chat. I know our moderators are doing a great job helping to answer some of those questions, so I really appreciate their help on that front. And I'll be able to field some not too long from now. And I also want to thank everyone for your donations. Let me go through some of them here. I know some people have also donated anonymously, so thank you to our anonymous donators. Your support to Kopernik is critical for supporting events like this one and our programming in general throughout the year. We're a nonprofit organization, so we're here because of you and because you enjoy what we do. So thank you so much. Let's go through some of the donations here. Byron, thank you for your donation. And we have Sherry or Cherry. Thank you so much for your donation. Let's see what else we have. I know there's quite a list here. So there's an anonymous donation, couple of them. That's about as far as mine goes from my current chat view. I think there were a few earlier, but I think I just reached the limit of my chat log in the view I'm looking at the moment. So yes, if you're in a position to support Kopernik, there is a way to do that in the chat. You can use the giving hand symbol. It's sort of this heart shape. That's two hands shaking. That's right in the chat. That's a way to donate through the stream. But you can also, if you prefer, go to the PayPal link in the video description if that's a preferable way to donate. And all of those proceeds, 100% of both, go to Kopernik. That's a part of YouTube giving. So that's, rather than super chats, the YouTube giving actually all goes to our nonprofit organization. So that's a great program supported by YouTube. So we thank them as well for offering that. All right. So let's go back. Oh yeah, we are back in the Comet view. Okay, so again, for those just joining us, this is live video of the Comet. It's not frames captured of the Comet. And like we discussed, it's not super bright. It's very, unlike Neowise, which actually you could see a good portion of the tail with our telescopes here at Kopernik. With this one, it's a little harder to pick up. And that's because it's a much dimmer comet compared to Neowise that was a nice, decently bright one back in 2020. I think at the end of July in 2020, that was when we got the best view of it here. And that was also our first live stream that we ran. Or not our first observing live stream. That was more official. Like, we were starting to get the ropes a little bit and learn how to properly do this, but it was still a little bit rocky. And I remember the video feed from that Comet stream was actually just coming from a smartphone. But because it was so bright, it worked. This one would not work as well with that method. So we're using a much more sensitive camera. For those interested, it's a Sony a7 III hooked up to an 8-inch Newtonian telescope this evening. So it's a pretty fast telescope, meaning it collects light pretty quick, so that's an advantage of it. And on top of that, the camera's quick too. It has a huge sensor, and you can really crank up the sensitivity. And we'll try and aim for some photos in a bit too, to try and capture some frames. I might not be able to grab those frames until after the stream, and then we'll post them later on. But we'll see what we can do from there. Again, we are fighting the moon tonight, so let's quickly jump back there. I want to see when the moon sets. It's probably going to be a while, based on where it is in the sky. So there's the comet, there's the moon. This is Stellarium. We have a link in the chat here. If you look back in the chat, you'll find that link to stellarium.org where you can download this at-home planetarium software and see where the comet is for yourself, where you're located, because it will change a bit. But if we click through the hours, we're at nearly 9:30 here. It's going to be out for a while. So yeah, I can't stay around for that long. In fact, not too long after the moon sets, the sun will rise, and that makes sense because we're nearly at full moon. Is that right? Where are we tonight with moon?
Yeah. Third quarter was Friday, I think.
Okay, yeah. So it's a gibbous. So we're pretty far along with a waxing moon, and that means it takes a while to move across the sky. So we're fighting the moon, and though you saw about a week and a half from now, it'll be waning, and if the comet's bright enough still, it may be worth imaging it'll just be dimming from here because it's moving further away from the Earth after tonight. But
Be clear till 11, then around midnight it's going to start getting cloudy.
oh, okay. So one of our Astro Society members, Art Cassiola, just informed me that the weather is also not going to be great as we head towards midnight. So that would also force us to eventually close down our stream. But for now, we have clear skies. So let's jump back to the comet view. There we go. So you can maybe just about see some green occasionally coming off of the comet. But most of it is that sort of haze you see around it, which is representative of the dust tail. It has a very wide fanning dust tail, unlike Neowise, which was more of that traditional comet shape. It had a long dust tail, nice and bright. This one's fanning out. So it's much wider, and it makes for a more diffuse fuzzball in the sky. And a little more uniform too. It almost blends in with the stars in this view. All right. So what I'd like to do, let's see, I'm gonna hide that. I'm going to try and set up a camera view with some ambient music just for those moments where we need to adjust the camera view outside. It'll be a live view of the comet still, but without me here to chat with you. But I'll make sure to point out in the text field that we'll be back. It's not the end of our discussion section. So we need to get audio, no media source. And text. Let's do this too. Add in. Oh, I guess I don't have that. Thought I did. Bear with me a moment here, everyone. Like I said, I'm just getting the intermission screen set up for when we do have to go adjust something outside. Do you happen to know the temperature right now, Art?
I'll check.
Just curious. You can almost feel the cold trying to get in here. We do have a weather station right up at Kopernik that is viewable on our website. So if you go to kopernik.org, you'll find it there. And so that is what, again, Art is going out to check. So if you compare this view that we have right now to the previous view, you will have noticed the comet would have shifted through the star field a little bit compared to the stars you see around it right now. So Linda asks, where is north on your comet image? Now that's something I might have to derive because depending on how I have my camera view set up, the field of the image might be rotated a bit. So let me see if I can try and narrow that down and maybe map out on the field of view there where north is.
17.
Oh, 17. It's only going to go down, I bet, from there. So it is 17 degrees at Kopernik right now. And you can feel it, even being inside. Where's the comet here? We got to look to the north. And oh, this is not the current time. There we go. Let's see if we can figure this out.
It's a mirror image, right?
I think so, yeah.
Because there's the triangles and there they are right there.
Yeah, there's like some kind of double star there, right? There's a double star. But maybe Stellarium just doesn't have that showing. Because I agree, that does look like that triangle.
Because there's those three and there's the one up there.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's like this one here.
Yeah.
And then there's this one here. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the case. And
Yeah, the
there's...
Newtonian mirror image.
It's not just field rotation.
Oh, it could be.
It's like if you bring that down,
Yeah. Okay.
that might be what all it is. Because this would come down. That whole triangle would come down. Okay, so the trouble there is I don't know if there's... I'd have to go out and probably rotate my camera to try and... Right. Yeah, that'd probably be what I have to do. To get the sensor aligned with where north is, as if it was aligned... the bottom of the frame that you're seeing right now is aligned with the horizon. That's what I would need to do to get it. So I'll check that out too and see if I can try and align that a bit better so the view you get in Stellarium is effectively what you're seeing here. And we'll recenter the comet too. Lori asks, why might the comet not come back around here again? And yeah, it's a great question. So we were discussing that earlier, and you may be seeing that in the news too, that the last time this comet appeared in our solar system and whipped around the sun was 50,000 years ago, when humans were hunter-gatherers and living in it was the Stone Age, right? So that was a long time ago, certainly. But in terms of the cosmos, really not that crazy. But for humans, certainly, you do have comets that you can see multiple times in your lifetime. There are a good handful of bright ones out there that make a regular trip around the sun, and those are going to be considered more periodic. This is what you'd call a non-periodic comet, meaning it has a orbital period longer than 200 years, and potentially not a stable orbital period like this one. So The comet, as it entered the solar system this time, entered the inner solar system, and it passed by the gas giants out there, especially Jupiter. Jupiter has a significant amount of control over objects in the solar system, much like the sun does. So if the comet was getting close enough into the orbit of Jupiter and Jupiter itself that its orbit was disturbed. And what we compared this to earlier was when you send a spacecraft out. You launch your rocket with a spacecraft, and you need to get it to the outer solar system. You need to get it to Saturn, or think about New Horizons, the New Horizons spacecraft that visited Pluto. It had to use a few slingshots, gravitational slingshots. And you do that by getting the spacecraft and whipping it around a body in the solar system. So you could use Venus, or you could use the Earth, you could use Mars, whatever will benefit you to get your spacecraft out there in the solar system to your target object. But of course, that same thing can happen. Everything in the solar system is gravitationally related. So when these wandering bodies, these comets, meteors, they can be affected by the larger bodies of the solar system, not just the sun, but Jupiter, Saturn, any of these larger mass objects. And that's the case for this comet. Its orbit has been shifted, and its speed and trajectory have changed enough to the point that it is now on a path to reach escape velocity and exit the solar system. It is no longer necessarily bound by the sun. So it will become, based on current projections, it will become an interstellar comet. So it's on its way out of the solar system. So great question, and that's the principle behind it. Joe says, Joe is also one of our Kopernik Astronomical Society members here at Kopernik. Joe says, north is more or less at the left of your frame. And yeah, based on what we saw, if you think about, the field rotation, I think that makes sense to me. So yeah, we'll say north is to the left of the frame. Yeah, because you'd have to rotate that triangle counterclockwise. Okay, yep, that makes sense to me. All right, what else do we have here? Alvaro asks, is it coming straight for us? No, we have no concern over this comet impacting the Earth. Near-Earth objects are a cause for concern. That we do have to monitor them to know if something is going to hit us. And there's observatories all across the world that monitor the sky for that exact purpose. They're called NEOs, or near-Earth objects. So that could be comets, that could be asteroids, it could be meteors, anything that is at risk of entering the Earth's orbital plane and potentially impacting the Earth at some point. And it's all based on probabilities too, because depending on how these objects travel through the solar system, what other bodies they interact with, how often they're orbiting, what their orbital period is, that can all dramatically affect its any future encounter with the Earth. So it has to be based on probabilities, especially in the long term. But this one is not a risk at all. It's, in fact, if we jump back to this view here, and we'll go to that. This website gives you a nice 3D look at the solar system and where the comet is with respect to the bodies. So here's our orbital plane, the plane of the solar system where all the major bodies exist. So you can see they all roughly fall along that same plane. Little bit of angular difference in each planet's plane, but more or less the planets fall along the same path. Objects that come from the Oort cloud or the outer solar system or Kuiper belt objects will come into the orbital plane at an angle. The Oort cloud is sort of this cloud of icy bodies like comets and icy material at the furthest reaches of our solar system. So it's more spherical in shape, not a plane of bodies, but a whole sphere of objects. And because of that, they can come from anywhere into our solar system. So here's the Earth. Here's the Comet C 2022 E3 ZTF. That's the comet we're looking at tonight. And the Earth is in line with this comet's orbital plane. We talked about that earlier and why you get some interesting features from the best astrophotos that are out there. To the point that you sort of see three tails, your ion tail, your dust tail, and an anti-tail. But more than that, you can get a perspective here of how far away this comet is and also see that it is nowhere on a path to hit the Earth. So for some perspective on that, you can gauge how far these planets are from each other. So here's the orbit of Venus. Here's the orbit of the Earth. And you can see it's about that same distance. So the orbital paths of the Earth and Venus, the distance between those, bird's eye view, more or less, is going to be the same distance to the comet. So you're really talking about objects that are very far away from each other. But it is as close as the comet can get to us right now. Let's see. Craw asks, in New York, will we see it? Well, if we go back to the camera view, we have proof that it is out there. It is just hard to find, and it's not visible to the eye, or at least not readily. I haven't seen it. It's been... I looked for it in my finder scope as well, because my theory it's pretty well aligned. So if it's visible through a small telescope like a finder, it should show up. But even in there, I may have just seen a hint of it. And this is our view from the actual telescope, our 8-inch Newtonian that we're using tonight, which is a pretty fast scope, and this is a pretty sensitive camera. So you can really get a sense of kind of how dim this comet is in the moonlight that we have to fight tonight. Because you'll notice it's a waxing moon, and that really drives the visibility of this comet. So you're not getting much of tail structure from it. You're certainly not getting the ion tail in this video feed we have right now. It is live video, so do keep that in mind. This is not a frame by frame. It's my camera with all of the settings cranked up as high as they can go in a video feed. So it is live, and we are going to work to try and get some frames to get a better capture of this comet. So we'll see what we can do there. When I go and adjust the view, because you can see it's starting to get off center. It's in our upper right-hand corner there. We will have to, you might see the video feed blink as I take frames, and just know it will come back. That's what we're doing when we're out there. What else do we have? So Zima says, I'm finding it difficult to find. I'm using binoculars and I'm looking between Polaris and, I never know how to pronounce that one. Dubé? Is that correct? So let's jump back here for a moment, and I'll just show you where it is again in the sky. So yeah, it's going to be higher up than that, because this is Dubhe, and this is Polaris, and that's the comet. So right now, it should be the case for just about everyone that if you can find Polaris, the comet's going to be about 20 degrees above Polaris. So you need to make sure that you can see the Big Dipper. You need to make sure that you can see the Little Dipper. At the tail end of the Little Dipper is Polaris, and about 20 degrees as an angular measurement, 20 degrees up above the North Star right here is the comet. Oh yeah, that's a good. Joe points out that it's basically halfway in between Capella, which is in the constellation Auriga, and so here's Capella, and here's Polaris. So it's, if you draw a line between the two, it's just about the midpoint of that line. So that's another good way to find it. That might be the most straightforward way. Again, that's the case for right now. This comet will move, and it will rotate with the sky as well. But at least its rotation with the sky, it's going to keep its perspective with the stars on that front. But it will move through the stellar background as the night goes on and as the days go on. Pretty quickly, too. Where is it visible? So it is starting to veer off frame a bit here, so I'm going to bring it back into view. And I'm going to put us into a bit of an intermission. We will be back to answer some of your questions. And I want to mention again, if we can hit, let's see, we're at 539 donations right now. If we can push towards 1,000 donations tonight, I think that will make for an awesome stream. So in general, though, thank you so much for your support, be it donations or subscriptions. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, if you want to stay tuned for more observing live streams, you can subscribe to our channel. That's a great way to interact with us on future streams, see what else we'll be up to. And also, another great way to show your engagement and support is to like the video. That lets YouTube know that you're enjoying this content and the information that Kopernik Observatory provides to you. And with your support, we'll continue to grow this channel. We actually do have a couple of neat, exciting things in the works that we're excited to announce, hopefully not too long from now. We're kind of just waiting on some administrivia to get that booted up, and it'll be a nice way to both support Kopernik and kind of get something out of it too. So look forward to that as well. And again, that's an example of something we were able to do because you enjoy the stream so much. So we'll make sure to announce that appropriately and everything once it comes time. So with that, I'm going to keep the live camera feed up. Actually, let me make a note that this is a live view. We gotta duplicate this here. I gotta adjust our intermission room with the live video of the comet so everyone knows what we're looking at. let's see, go back here. That'll be close enough. All right, I've got some ambient music to play for you as we enter the just the straight video from the camera, and I'll be back with you in maybe 5 to 10 minutes to answer more of your questions and to enjoy the comet with you. Here we go. All right. And yes, as the clouds begin to roll in, they're not quite thick enough to cause us to lose sight of the comet, but they are getting there. I did want to touch base with everyone one last time. I see we still have quite a few viewers tuning in, so that is great. I hope if anyone has been here throughout the stream, I hope you enjoyed the show. But we're not going to close out quite yet. I do want to give everyone a chance to ask a few more questions if you have a curiosity about this comet. Oh yeah, there's some clouds passing over right now. The comet right now in our field of view is not quite centered. It's towards the bottom. If you look in the center of the field of view and just go down a little bit, you'll see that fuzzball of the comet. I do have some frames that I captured out in... That was actually, yeah, if you were watching and you saw the screen go black for a period, that was the camera shutter going, so that I could capture a long exposure image. And the longest I took was 30 seconds. So we'll see what comes out of that. If you'd like to follow us on our social media, we'll be sure to post our results there. And there are some possibilities of following up on this comet. Like we talked about earlier in the stream, we found out that around February 10th, it's going to be passing pretty close to Mars, which, again, for wide field astronomy and astrophotography, that could be pretty neat to check out. So we might be able to do a live stream there. Or just get some good photos to share with you later on. Let's see. Any questions? No questions so far. But again, if you have a question, I'll leave this open for a little bit, just as we lose the comet out of our field of view. There must be something strange going on with the tracking, because we were right on top of it for a good amount of time. Yeah, now as you can see, and like I said, the clouds are starting to come in. So we had our best view of the night earlier on, and you can go back in this live stream and check that out. And I'll be sure to share some photos with you on our social media platforms. Again, links in the video description for those. Let's see here. Someone is asking... Yeah, we got a variety of questions of where is it, and one I can answer really quick of why is it green, and we are just losing it in our field of view. So I'm going to switch to Stellarium now, because we'll answer some of those questions. So Eddie asks, why is it green? The comet's green because of diatomic carbon, particularly diatomic carbon in its gaseous phase. So the solar wind is energizing that gaseous diatomic carbon, and that carbon fluoresces, it emits its own radiation, and then you get that green color from that. So that's the case for most comets that have a green hue to them. Neowise was similar. It also had a green coma around it, and it's coming from that gaseous diatomic carbon. Diatomic carbon being a molecule of carbon, two carbons put together. And where is it now? So let's just quickly look in Stellarium again here. You can go back earlier in the stream and check out where it was. Now, what is neat about this is earlier in the stream, the comet was right above Polaris, or the North Star. This is the North Star at the tail end of the Little Dipper. But now as it has drifted off a little bit as the sky has rotated. So most of that change in position is because of the sky's rotation. But the comet is moving through the stars tonight, as we noticed when we time traveled through the days. On February 10th, for example, while the comet's here today, February 10th, the comet will be right on top of Mars. So it's going to drift through the sky heading towards Mars over the coming days. But right now it is still the case that it is about halfway between the bright star Capella and the North Star Polaris. So almost like a midway point between those stars, just a little bit above it. Oh, thank you, Mateo, for your donation, which is worth bringing up again. If you are in a position to support Kopernik through a donation, you can do so right directly in the stream, in the live chat, by clicking that heart shape. It's sort of two hands, two shaking hands shaped like a heart. That's in the live chat. You can click that and donate, either sharing your name, or you can do so anonymously. If you prefer to go through PayPal, there is a PayPal link in the video description. So that's available for you too. So what else we have here? Whoops. Also, if you have enjoyed tonight's content, definitely click the thumbs up. That shows that you were engaged in the program tonight, and YouTube likes to see those thumbs up. It shows engagement in the videos, and it will continue to promote our channel so more people can enjoy our cosmic conversations. And also, if you like the content, subscribe to the channel too. I think, let's double check the stats for tonight. I always, as we wind down, I like to mention that, and as a thank you for supporting the channel. Oh yeah, we put about 500 subscribers onto the channel tonight, so thank you so much. And of course, subscribing does give you access to our live chats on all live streams, so that is the major perk there. We have a great community. We continue to build after every stream, and we do have a variety of programming, from our night sky lives like this one to FNLs, which are our Friday night live streams, and our Kopernik reactions, which are reaction streams related to big events in space exploration. Like most recently, we covered Artemis. So yeah, the variety of programs that you will now see pop up in your subscription box on YouTube. And we do, like I said earlier, we do have something in the works that will be another great way to support Kopernik, and you'll get a little something out of it too with your support. So I can't announce everything on that front yet, but stay tuned for a proper announcement on that project that we've been working on. We've kind of teased it before, so if you're a seasoned viewer of the channel, you may have some idea what it is. But I'm excited to share that with you and get that booted up. So, and again, that's because of your kind contributions. We received about around, I forgot where we started tonight on our fundraiser, but I think it's something like 500 subscribers and $500 in donations. So that works pretty well, I think. Nice even statistic there. Let's see. And I just wanted to check the likes on tonight's video too, just to see where we fell there. Oh, we are almost at, yeah, we are almost at 1,000 likes. And there are 675 viewers. Can we get to 1,000? Hit that thumbs up button. And that'll be a great way to wind down the stream. Again, if you enjoyed tonight's content. Billy asks, can I see it from Virginia? You can. It is definitely going to be high enough in your sky. Your latitude isn't going to be too far off from ours. So again, as long as you can see, the Big Dipper will be pretty high up in your sky, just like we have here. And if you can find Polaris, that's at the tail end of the Little Dipper, and you can find this star here, Capella. The comet is right in between. And earlier I mentioned that I was not able to see it with just my eye, but when I went out again using some of the tools that the chat suggested and the one that we determined here earlier in the stream, I was able to finally spot it. but you have to use your peripheral vision or your averted vision. Don't look directly at where it should be. Look a little off to the side. When you do that, your eyes are going to be more sensitive to light. So you'll see something pop out in that zone in the sky, and that is the comet. It's similar for deep sky objects that are just a little dim and more diffuse. That's the same with the comet. It's not quite a point light. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So you can also use Cassiopeia if you can find the zigzag or the W in the sky. See how it zigs and zags, and then it will point. These two stars will point right to the comet. Right in between, again, Polaris and Capella. So that's another great way to find it. Use the constellations to your advantage. Someone's asking how fast. Let's see, how fast would you say the comet is traveling? And that is not a figure I have right off the bat. The figure in Stellarium it's giving me in terms of orbital velocity is 39.1 kilometers a second. So that's what I'm seeing in Stellarium, and that should be fairly accurate. They do a good job of mapping out the orbits of these objects in this program. So if you want to download this, by the way, I'll put it in the chat. I'll put the web address where you can download your at-home planetarium called Stellarium. It's available for Mac, for Linux, for Windows, and there's a web-based version for Chromebooks. We are at 976 likes. We're almost there. And again, if anyone has any final questions, we'll wrap up the stream in about 5 minutes. Again, we have lost the comet at this point, in part due to clouds and in part due to some tracking issues that we've run into on the mount. But let's see, we started at around 8:15 or so. We're ending nearly at 11:30, so we had a good amount of time of viewing the comet. And I think most enjoyed the ambient music as usual, so I made sure to keep that going there for a time. Keep in mind that tonight isn't the only night that you can hunt for this comet. It will be visible and similar in brightness for at least the next week or so. But tonight is the close approach. So after tonight, this is about as bright as it can get. From here on out, it's going to be drifting into the solar system, into the outer solar system, and it's just going to get dimmer and dimmer before, over time, it's just going to completely exit the solar system. One day it will become an interstellar comet once it officially leaves our solar system. Whereas to this point, as far as we know, it has been in a very long orbit, every 50,000 years or so. So 50,000 years ago, this comet was here again, or was here before, during the Stone Age. But yeah, now it's on its way out based on current projections. So Eddie asks, how do they know it was last seen 50,000 years ago when nobody was around back then to measure it? So that is very true that it was not, there's no historical record of this comet popping back like we have historical records of more regular periodic comets that have orbits less than 200 years. So this is based on orbital models and our understanding of the trajectory of the comet as it came in and as it was discovered at the Zwicky Transient Facility. So all those measurements were made as it was first coming in, because this comet was discovered almost a year ago, in March of 2022. So they caught this one pretty early on before it finally made its way close to the sun. And all that time they were able to track its motion and its orbit, and understand and map out where it came from. And its orbit was effectively a closed ellipse, not an arc. It was a closed ellipse. So that means that at one point it had been close to the sun before. It's just on a very long orbit, 50,000-year orbit, venturing out into the Oort cloud, which is the furthest reaches of our solar system, and then coming back towards the sun. But again, similarly, now we know, after traveling in the inner solar system and being affected by the Jupiter, for example, the more massive objects, its orbit and its speed has changed to a degree that now it's no longer a closed ellipse. It's more of that arc shape that's going to take it out of the solar system. What does it orbit around? It does it is orbiting around the sun. So over these past 50,000 years, that's what it's been orbiting around. All right. So good questions, everyone. And we have officially passed our 1,000 likes for tonight. So thank you for getting us to that point. And if you aren't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. We'd love to see you again soon. Our next live stream will be during the Winter Star Party on February 18th. I think that's right. Is that a Saturday? The 18th?
Yes,
Saturday. Okay. Yep. So
6 o'clock.
Saturday, February 18th at 6 o'clock. We'll be back with some presentations for you. You can stay tuned for details on our Kopernik.org website, which is also in the video description. And we'll see if we can get another stream going at some point in the near future too, on an observing live stream. Like I said, this comet's going to get close to Mars. That might be an interesting one. We'll see if our skies behave. We really lucked out on this close approach, though. It was just on Monday that we saw that our forecast was looking great for the close approach, and we're like, oh, well, we have to do it. So we're happy we made it work, and we're excited to share some that future project I mentioned with you. That will directly integrate with our YouTube channel and be a great way to give something back to you while supporting Kopernik as well. So with that said, I'm going to close out the stream tonight, and I hope to see you all again soon. It's been great chatting with you, and we'll look out for the next astronomical event. Have a good night, everyone.